How's it going, OFPs? And welcome to the first ever installment of the Off-Field Players Podcast. I'm your host, Phillip Hall, and I'm just very excited to begin this new journey in my podcasting career as we're going to start off with this new project that I'm putting up into place, and just very excited to be able to start after this crazy Thanksgiving weekend. And just before we go into tonight's episode, I want to give everybody a basis of what this podcast is about. So you're probably asking yourself, what is an OFP? Well, an off-field player is a person that is just very dedicated and career-minded when it comes to the sports industry, and just trying to get that focus and just that business mentality of trying to work in sports. And I just wanted to start this podcast off to be able to bring that to the folks here in regards to just what working in the sport industry is about, bringing everybody awareness, mentorship, and also really just, in any way, finding a way to inspire the next generation coming up to become future off-field players. A person that's very strong and trying to understand what it's like to work in the business side of sports, and just to be able to provide the information that I'm able to give out to a big audience. And that's what we're going to do here with this podcast. So with that being said, I think it's best to give a little bit of a background about myself. So, as you all know, my name is Phillip Hall, and I am currently a senior at St. John's University studying sport management with a concentration in business administration. And I'm set to graduate in the upcoming year on May 2023. And this was initially an idea that I had for post-graduation, but due to some certain circumstances, I thought, why not just start it now? So this is just the inauguration of the Off-Field Players Podcast. And as I mentioned before, and as you could go listen in the trailer as I made one for the show, you could just give you a quick breakdown of what I'll be covering as I begin this new journey. But just to give a little bit of background about myself and just the inspiration of why I wanted to start this is, I've had some experience working in the sports industry myself. I had taken part in 3 internships. The first one that I had was in the summer of 2021 with 2311 Racing in NASCAR. It's the NASCAR team that was founded by Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin, and my role there was a social media intern. And I tell people all the time that was the greatest summer of my life, and I would go back and relive that summer over and over again if I had the chance to. But that just really kicked off my journey from there. And knowing that we were just coming out of the pandemic at that time, and it was one of the struggles was trying to find an internship to do, but that was just the kickoff start of where I am at today. And then the following summer, 2022, I was actually able to be a part of 2 internships simultaneously. So I was a member of the NASCAR Diversity Internship Program at NASCAR. I was placed at Sonoma Raceway, where I was brought on as a marketing and communications intern for the racetrack, and I was able to help out with event planning as I was helped event plan for the NASCAR weekend that took place there in June, and also for NHRA drag racing, if anybody's a huge fan of that. So that was a part of the NASCAR side of the summer that I had. And the second internship that I did that same summer was with the Oakland Athletics. I was part of an intern for the Office of the President, so I worked close with the team president of the Oakland A's, and was also involved in trying to do the research on just the real estate and political developments in regards to the Oakland Athletics' new ballpark that they're trying to build in Oakland over at Howard Terminal. And I should also say that I am a native of Oakland, California. So I grew up and I was born and raised there and lived my entire life there. And in a way, still I consider Oakland to be home, even though I'm all the way out here in New York for school. But that's just really the breakdown of what experience I've had so far working in sports. And on top of that, what I've been able to do here at St. John's as a student, I do broadcasting for some of the sports teams here. Early this fall, I did broadcasting for the men's and women's soccer team here at St. John's, and currently I'm a part of the broadcast team for men's and women's basketball here at St. John's, and in the spring I'll be lined up to do baseball to round out my college career here at St. John's as a sport management major, and even also as a side job as a college student sport broadcaster. But this right now, I'm going into podcast mode where I'm getting back into doing it, and want to continue to bring some inspiration to the generation that's coming up, and also use this platform as a way to help influence people to get into the sports industry, go to school to study sport management, or really any sports related major, as there's plenty of opportunities out there. And I figured with the experience I've been able to gain over the years and throughout my college experience, I could be able to pass that on to the listeners that will be a part of the OFP family. So with that being said, I want to start off tonight's show with just going over something that's been very relevant that's currently happening in the sports world. And as we all know, we are in the middle of watching the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. And I know this past weekend I've been able to finally have some downtime to be able to catch some of the matches, and I've just been very impressed with what I've been seeing as far as the matches. I mean, a lot of surprises, a lot of close games, and even just a lot of things that a lot of people weren't expecting out of this World Cup. And I know for a lot we weren't expecting a World Cup like this. I mean, it's unusual to have a World Cup in the middle of the winter, but due to certain circumstances, and of course Qatar getting their bid, which was controversial, but I won't get into details about that. But just understanding like what people were expecting from this World Cup. I mean, there's been plenty of headlines that have been raised some question marks in regards to the legitimacy and just the atmosphere of the World Cup overall. But the biggest headline that was announced a few days before the tournament even started was the ban on beer sales at the World Cup. So this is an alcohol-free World Cup, which was very unusual, especially with Budweiser being the official beer supplier for the World Cup for this year and also for 2026, when the World Cup will take place in North America, Canada, United States, and Mexico included. And it's been said that Budweiser paid $75 million up front to FIFA to be the official beer supplier. But when you're a beer company and you can't sell beer in the stadiums, like, what other options do you have? So the other option that was put into place for Budweiser was to sell non-alcoholic beer. So Budweiser Zero is I guess you could say, the official drink of the World Cup, because, that's really the only kind of beer that they can sell. But that was really off of the basis of Qatar having a no public drinking law in place. And also, if you're seen intoxicated in public, you get a prison sentence. So, we understand that the laws over there are pretty strict, and I know a lot of people weren't really looking forward to doing that. And, of course, with Qatar being the way that Qatar is, you just have to oblige by the laws. And I know a lot of people have been talking about, like, oh, man, Qatar's they've done this to build the stadiums, or they bribed FIFA into just getting the hosting bid that they wanted, and now you can't even buy a beer when you go to the games, and the fans are complaining about it. But I know it may seem very dire of how the expectations of the fan perspective going to Qatar, but I also really have to you also kind of really have to go back and understand that Qatar is not going to change their laws for the sake of them hosting the World Cup. I mean, I know it may sound a little bit insensitive for me to say that, and but we also have to understand that if you're gonna be on somebody's turf, you have to respect their turf. And I know what they do in Qatar is something that we may not perceive or do here in the United States. I mean, we're a little bit more lenient, but Qatar is a little bit more stricter with certain subjects. When it comes to beer, I mean, you just kind of have to respect it. And I know Budweiser, as far as just the business, looking at it from a business perspective, Budweiser is looking to get $47.4 million deducted for the 2026 World Cup in the next 4 years from the next World Cup, which is understandable because their plans were hopefully to sell beer at the stadiums. And, there's a lot of money to be made in that regard, especially with how many people turn out to watch the World Cup matches. And, it's understandable of that. Qatar is still being strict with their laws, and they're still not, obliging by what the public population may say. But it's just how it is, and unfortunately, as far as just the supplying beer to the fans. I mean, really the best you can do if you're Budweiser is just to be able to do what you can. And, Bud Zero, that's the move to go. But it's been very interesting, though. I mean, I know this is the first time where I've been able to have a chance to watch some of the games, and I've noticed that a lot of these games are, kind of like evenly balanced, and there's been even some surprises. And I just believe that the World Cup is it has more magnitude than a lot of people may think. And I know if you're the casual soccer fan, you probably look at the World Cup as something that you're definitely going to be tuned into, and you may not keep up with, say, like the club matches when it's league play. Say if you're a fan of the Premier League or a fan of MLS or a fan of La Liga or the Bundesliga, you probably don't have much of a connection with the certain clubs if you're the casual fan, but you'll have a connection with the national teams. And I know the U.S. national team, especially with that match that they had the other day with England, it was almost like a cultural event. And, just seeing these matchups when they're with the teams that were grouped and that made it to Qatar. And, I mean, yeah, people will get excited about seeing, how each country equates with the talent of football that they have, football, using, a proper term. And, just being able to experience something that they only get to see for 4 years. And I know this may be a hot take when I say this, but I feel like for a player, their contributions to the national team is a lot more important than, say, the contributions that they made to a club team. And I say this when I think about players like Pele, Diego Maradona, Lionel Messi, and Cristiano Ronaldo. Like those guys, even like back in the day, Pele wasn't well known for what he did at Santos, which, if you ask a casual fan if they've ever heard of Santos, they probably don't know where that club is. Mind you, it's the club that Pele played most of his career in Brazil. They play in Brazil's top flight. But nobody's going to remember the success that Pele had at Santos. I mean, I could tell you that he scored 617 goals for the club, but nobody's going to remember that. All they will remember is the achievements they had with Brazil's national team, the World Cups that he was able to win with them. And the same could be said about Diego Maradona. Like, not a lot of people are going to bring up Diego Maradona's accomplishments at Napoli and, when he played over in Italy compared to the accomplishments they had when he playing for the Argentinian national team. I mean, you could go back and look at, the most memorable moments in soccer. Most of them are highlights of players competing in the World Cup, and the star players. Even with Messi. I mean, Messi's career has been kind of been in the decline with him playing at Paris Saint-Germain. And even, at times, some people may remember the accomplishments they had at Barcelona, but most importantly, with the state of this World Cup, knowing that this is his last one, there's a lot more magnitude that rides on him trying to win it all for Argentina. Something that has been elated many times throughout his career of just missing that chance to raise that World Cup trophy, which is why I believe the World Cup is very important in a lot of aspects in regards to just understanding that there's a lot more on the line. There's a lot more focus when it comes to the star talents, when it comes to the promotion of it, when it comes to the reputability of the teams. And this may when this all ends, this is probably going to go down as one of the most controversial World Cups to ever take place, just because of how different it was. I mean, we're having we literally had the World Cup matches on Thanksgiving. I mean, how often can we say that we were able to get the combination of the NFL, college basketball, the NBA, and the World Cup all on the same holiday? I mean, it's strange, and it just goes to show that if it works, it works, and the viewership numbers have been up for the World Cup. I mean, you look at how many views are given to the USA men's national team. But granted, they'll probably get viewers regardless. But on the same day where you expect more people watching football, like American football, as I'm referring to, you'll see the millions of fans watching that, and compared to how many people we could get to watch a World Cup match, I mean, yeah, it's a good thing to know, or a good thing to see if you work in corporate, and that just makes it all the difference. But one thing I do want to touch on, though, just showing like how important it is for a country to win a big match in the World Cup. The Saudi Arabian national team are set to be gifted Rolls-Royce Phantoms after their 2-1 upset win over Argentina, which was announced by the leader of Saudi Arabia, Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud. And the fact that the leader of a nation is able to give, professional athletes, or gift professional athletes, a $460,000 car each, I mean, it just shows you how important it is to like witness like greatness in the World Cup. And there was even this video that I saw on social media of fans of Saudi Arabia, like they were watching the game in their house, and after they scored the winning goal against Argentina to win the match, this guy literally rips the door off the hinges of his home out of celebration just by how big that goal was scored. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how important the World Cup is, I don't know what will. Because, fans go hard. They go crazy whenever their countries win, and that's just, like, I'm curious to see. And, I mean, this only happens 4 years, so it's not like if the World Cup happened every year that you would get these kind of celebrations taking place. I mean, it's just not normal. I mean, it's something that's uncommon, and something you always look forward to, and just, like you just don't know what to expect. There have been a lot of surprise wins too. I mean, you think about like Saudi Arabia taking out Argentina, or even Japan beating Germany in the opener. I mean, there's a lot of surprises in this World Cup, and I believe that adds to the odd mentality, or the mysterious state of this World Cup in general. And you just think about what makes this World Cup different, and what it may, even though it may be controversial in the end, but it will have some historical aspects to it when it's all said and done. I mean, I can't even tell you now who I think is going to win the whole thing. I mean, it's really anybody's tournament at this point, and we've seen a lot of surprises so far. But I know with how this World Cup is going forward, and FIFA is set to get their money, they're still going to become rich with $7.5 billion being handed to them from this World Cup. And with FIFA and just understanding the state of how they were able to get this World Cup off the ground, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to trust them anymore. I mean, not to knock them as an organization, but I mean they kind of like lost the trust out of a lot of soccer fans from around the world, and it's just something that you kind of have to live with. And these are people in power that are allowing this to happen to themselves. And I don't know if that's how FIFA wants to represent themselves, then just kind of have to live with it. That's why I encourage people to go into sport management so they can go to school and be able to hold these positions someday. And I'm looking at this article right now, and it says that Qatar and FIFA have sought to keep certain forms of self-expression to a minimum, of saying that Belgium was reportedly disallowed from wearing a pre-match shirt because it was too colorful. And FIFA successfully dissuaded teams from wearing anti-discrimination One Love armbands by threatening to give out yellow cards. And when you think about an organization like FIFA and how they're disallowing self-expression in a tournament like the World Cup, and even at times, FIFA, they do their best to try to show self-expression to equality, but and it almost makes them come off as hypocrites. You say that you want these things to happen, these things to change for soccer all over the world, but when you have like a high-class tournament like the World Cup where you're not allowing teams to express themselves, then that's just pandering. Like it almost comes off as you just pandering, you just being hypocritical to the statements that you put out, and that's very concerning for a lot of these national teams. I know teams have been combating against like the LGBTQ laws in Qatar, and knowing how Qatar is about that and how they approach it. It's frowned upon in that part of the world, but teams like Germany, they can't, like they get questioned for posing posing a certain way for the team photo before the match starts, and it instantly becomes a headline because it's happening on in a nation where LGBTQ rights are frowned upon, just based off the dynamics of the country itself. And and I honestly, you kind of have to. It goes back to the term, like, if you're going to be on my turf, I want you to respect my turf. And I'm not saying that Germany was wrong in doing what they did. It's just that for them to do it, I thought it was very bold because there are certain things that it's like if somebody came to the United States, right, and we would expect them to behave a certain way and not project their certain beliefs on us forcefully, like while during the time that they're here, or if they decide to come and live here. I mean, if somebody were to come on our turf, we will want them to respect our turf for what it is. I mean, that's like if you go to any other country. You go to any other country, that country will expect you to abide by their laws and respect the laws that they have in place. So for the teams to go to Qatar and do what they do as far as freedom of speech and showing self-awareness, then again, it's very bold that they do it, but I expect certain backlash to come from the nation itself, especially if you're doing it on their turf, which at times they'll probably let you slide with it, but if you were just out like a regular Joe out in the streets just doing what they do, the consequences will probably be a lot more severe than you might expect. But that's just, I guess, really the beauty of the World Cup. I mean, it's an event that brings the whole world together, and just off the beauty of the beautiful game. And at times, you do have these stories pop up where you have countries showing off freedom of speech, and if a country upsets the favorite, then you have the leader of the country giving out like free Rolls Royces to their players, which I believe is very generous of the Prince of Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's a lot of headlines to look forward to and to expect from this World Cup as the weeks go on. I mean, we still have another month left in this tournament, and yeah, it's just going to be curious to see how it all comes in the end. But I want to change gears here a little bit and just sticking on the concept of football. Well, of course, American football. The NFL Thanksgiving viewership over the holiday actually exceeded records. So there was a total of 42 million viewers that watched the Giants and the Cowboys on Fox, which was a record as far as the most watched NFL game in history, since the age of the TV. And I mean, for there to be 42 million viewers to watch a Giants and Cowboys game, and especially with all the other sports events that were happening over Thanksgiving, like again the World Cup, college basketball, the NBA. I mean, you take your pick of what you want to watch, and still be able to get that many eyes on the game. I mean, that just shows the almighty power that the NFL still has, like when it comes to the TV contracts. And then you also want to bring up, the Bills and the Lions. They had 31.6 million viewers, and even the Vikings and the Patriots, they were able to get 25.9 million viewers. And the average viewership in total out of all the games that took place on Thanksgiving round out to be 33.5 million people watching American football on the holiday. And yeah, I mean, and there was a 5 million viewer increase from last year, which in a lot of ways isn't a surprise because, every week the NFL dominates in the viewership category. I mean, especially with the schedule that the NFL has put out with, making it 18 games and knowing that it's only a small portion of the year, the calendar year at that. Thanksgiving, you got family over, you have a lot of people with the TV on in the living room or even in the kitchen or even at the dining table watching these games. And it just doesn't come to a surprise to me that the NFL is still able to dominate the TV ratings week after week, especially on holidays like Thanksgiving, when everybody's going to be together, and everybody, and there's going to be a large set of eyes to be on the TV for all the games, and especially to do it during a time where you have a bunch of other stuff happening on Thanksgiving. Again, like the World Cup wasn't expected to be taking place on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, if you're a fan of the U.S. national team, you wouldn't expect to be watching, certain matches like on Thanksgiving in the World Cup. I mean, it's just like very abnormal, especially with the tradition of the World Cup taking place during the summer months when the only sport that's really happened at the time is baseball. But like it's a worldwide event, so you expect a lot of people, even in the States, to tune into that. But it's just incredible to see how much power the NFL still has over the general population, and just to get that many eyes on there. So that was pretty cool to know. I know I caught some of the games. I didn't watch all of them. I mean, I watched the Bills and the Lions a little bit, and I'm a Raiders fan. I should just say that off the bat. But I mean, I kind of really care less about the teams that we're watching on TV. I mean, I didn't really get into that as much. But I kind of like I think if the Raiders were playing on Thanksgiving, I probably would have paid more attention to the games at that hand. But you kind of get what you get. And I know traditionally the Lions and the Cowboys, they get the Thanksgiving games every year, and they, of course, with their fan bases, they obviously get the pick of the litter for how they want to dictate their broadcast and how they're trying to host it. But yeah, it was definitely a cool stat to bring up, and it kind of puts to you, like, for anybody that's trying to go into television, that you expect to see a lot of networks buying into the idea of, like, oh man, like if we could get the NFL, then it'll do wonders to our ratings. And you look at the success that Amazon has had this year, and I know I watch a lot of the games with my roommates and like the Thursday night games, and it's been kind of disappointing in a way for the way that they set up the schedule. But I think that's just because the teams that they were expecting to become successful. I know you look at the Broncos; they've been getting a lot of primetime games, all thanks to Russell Wilson signing with the team. And you see them on Monday night, you see them on Thursday night, but they haven't really been having the best of seasons, and as a team. And when that happens, that hurts the viewerships. I mean, nobody's going to want to watch a losing team get paired with another losing team. And if you're the head of a network, then that probably makes you very concerned on, like, oh man, is this really working? Like, how are we going to fix it? Well, you already set the schedule up, so you really just have to go with it and just ride it out and just plan better for next year. So hopefully Amazon does get it right in the future when it comes to setting up these games, and just making sure, like, hey, you kind of have to do better at estimating the success of teams on a yearly basis. So hopefully they can get it right. But I know Fox had a very good weekend. Same with CBS and NBC. I'm sure everybody's happy about the viewerships that they were able to get, especially with all the other sporting events going on. I was very heavy in the college basketball this weekend, and that's probably based off the fact that I'm calling college basketball for St. John's, and I need to keep up with these other teams because the way that St. John's has been performing right now, especially starting the season out 7-0. I mean, you just look at how they match up with other teams across the country and who we might see in March Madness, depending on how far we make it. But yeah, in college basketball, still like a national treasure in a lot of ways when it comes to American sports. I mean, we always get excited about college basketball every season, especially with the camaraderie that teams have for their schools, and the fan bases, and just the top matchups that you look forward to every week and during the season, and especially during this time where you have teams competing in early season tournaments. I know for St. John's, we were in the Empire Classic early on Thanksgiving week, where we were playing in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. We were going up against teams like Temple, and especially the championship game against Syracuse, where it was almost like an upset, or it would be considered an upset that we beat them, especially with how long we haven't faced Syracuse, and knowing that it was a high-profile matchup with Jim Boeheim and the history that he has as a coach over there, and to be able to take him down in a early season tournament. I mean, it just goes to show the excitement that there is when it comes to that. And even for the other big ones like the Maui Invitational or I was even watching the Phil Knight Invitational and the Phil Knight Legacy and saw the matchups there. I mean, like this, my favorite time of the year for college basketball, just to see, how these other top-ranked teams match up against top-ranked teams that they'll probably be able to see during March Madness if they make it that far. But, for the NFL to still be able to dominate with all the other sports that people had the choices of watching, I mean, it just still shows the power that they have. But moving into the final segment of tonight, I wanted to touch a little bit on the stadium news. I mean, there's been a headline in many places around the country where sports teams are starting to invest in advance in their presentation when it comes to real estate. And it was a big announcement a few weeks ago that NYCFC is set to get a new stadium over at Willets Point in Queens, which is right around the same area where the Mets Stadium is in Citi Field. So, NYCFC is finally on the verge of leaving Yankee Stadium, which was something I was expecting sooner than later because I know NYCFC, they're one of the new teams in the MLS, and in a way it felt like they were stuck at Yankee Stadium because obviously, playing in New York City, you don't get a lot of land to begin with to create new developments, especially for massive ones like sports stadiums. But NYCFC finally had their wish granted, and their prayer answers to build New York City's first pro soccer stadium. And yes, this is New York City's first pro soccer stadium. We can't count Red Bull Arena over in Harrison, New Jersey, home of the New York Red Bulls, because even though the Red Bulls are technically a New York team, their property or the stadium is still in Jersey, which is very common for many New York teams, especially the Giants and the Jets. So for NYCFC to build New York City's first pro soccer stadium on New York land, I mean, it's a big deal. It's huge, and I think it also, it's past due for a team like NYCFC, especially with the success that they've had in recent years, especially winning the MLS Cup in 2021, and also just the fan base that they've been able to build with the East Coast and just New York City in general, just making New York City more dominant in soccer. But a little bit about their new stadium is that it's going to be a 23-acre development in Willets Point in Queens, which is surrounded by Citi Field where the Mets play, and even also the host site for the U.S. Open and Arthur Ashe Stadium. So you add NYCFC's new stadium there, you got a sports complex, so or a much bigger one at that. So 23-acre development with 25,000 seats, 250-room hotel to be added on with the development, along with 2,500 units and affordable housing. And all of this is going to come at the price of $780 million and supposed to be completed by 2027. And it says that the club will pay the city $4 million over a 49-year lease deal with a 25-year extension option. So the one thing I want to touch a little bit on is people saying that they're going to be adding affordable housing. And I feel like with what I was able to do or learn over the summer during my ACE internship is that you need to be very careful in how you describe what affordable housing is. I mean, especially in New York City. I mean, I know affordable housing where I come from, it means a whole different thing than what affordable housing may mean in New York City. And just knowing what with these new stadium projects and that they're adding housing units around them, I mean, these housing units, the rents for to live near a stadium is absolutely insane. I mean, it could cost you up to about like $2,000 to $4,000 a month on rent in most places, and especially in New York City, I mean, it could be a little bit more higher. So I'm very curious on what the rents are going to look like for the affordable housing when they do build it. But all I just have to say is you need to be very careful when you say stuff like that, because people are going to think that affordable housing is X amount of money when it comes to rent. But I feel like the project can work out, and there's still a lot more details that need to be discussed when it comes to this when the project breaks ground. I know 2027 is a long time from now, but yeah, I mean, if they say that they want to do it, then they'll probably do it, and especially the timing was kind of off for another team that's based in New York and set to start next year. So a lot of people may know about Queensboro FC. They're going to be the new USL Championship expansion team set to start their season next year in 2023. And they'll be playing their home games at a newly renovated stadium over in York College in Jamaica, Queens. And and that's the team I've been very excited about, especially knowing that they're going to be a USL Championship team in New York, and especially in a borough like Queens. I mean, I don't know, they're kind of raises some concerns for Queensboro FC's promotion when it comes to trying to sell tickets, because once the stadium for NYCFC gets built, then you might lose some sales there. I mean, hopefully that's not the case. I'm not wishing that on Queensboro FC. I know they're a well-ran or a club from what I've been able to see over there, especially with them just trying to prepare for their inaugural season in professional soccer. But I mean, NYCFC, they'll still have the higher power because they play in U.S. soccer's top flight in Major League Soccer. We'll just have to see how that goes. But I'm very excited finally that NYCFC is going to get a new stadium, and I hope it all goes well and they could move out of Yankee Stadium, because I went to go watch a game there once, and I tell you this, Yankee Stadium is not built for soccer. I'm just going to say that right now. It like the viewpoints for soccer at Yankee Stadium, it was not built that way. So Yankee Stadium, stick to baseball and college football if you have to. So but another big story when it comes to stadiums is the Kansas City Royals. It was announced that they're going to be building a $2 billion downtown ballpark in Kansas City, because the lease for them at Kauffman Stadium is up in 2031, and team CEO John Sherman has already announced plans to begin development of a downtown ballpark for the Royals. And if we want to add on to that with the Oakland A's and their debacle with their stadium project, but the A's is a little bit different, because the fate of their new ballpark in Oakland really lied on the new Oakland mayor, as the new mayor-elect of Oakland, Sheng Tao, has finally completed the election and has won and will be sworn in as the new mayor of Oakland, which was something that the A's have been waiting on, especially with their decision in trying to push forward with the Howard Terminal project, and even with the rumors of them having to go to Vegas. But I know this has been like an ongoing battle of debates on like, oh man, like, are the A's going to stay in Oakland, or are they going to or is Rob Manfred trying to force them to move to Las Vegas? And like you already had like the Nevada's government, the state governments already say that they are still pumping money into the new stadium that they had to build for the Raiders when they moved to Vegas, and they're just not like in a position right now to put any money up front to build a baseball stadium for the A's, which in a way does help Oakland out in a way, because I know they were really just, the team was really trying to rely on who the local government was going to be, and that was just a lot of the pushback for if a new ballpark was going to be built by the public. And you would just have to think about, it's not easy to build a new stadium, especially if you're in a city where the land is very limited, and if you're and knowing that they're trying to probably fund the new stadium, there's a lot more that goes into it, and you'll receive a little bit more of controversy in a way, and also a little bit more of understanding of trying to cooperate with the city. But I'm curious to know more about what the Royals' plan is when it comes to build their new stadium, because I've been to Kansas City, and I've driven just going around there, it didn't feel like there was a ton of open land, and I even went to go see the Royals ballpark, and where it is, because like the Royals and the Chiefs, they share the same property for as far as their stadiums are concerned. and there's just nothing there. It's just out like off the interstate in the middle of nowhere. There's not really much to do or go do after games, and really that's what a lot of these new stadium projects are starting to push for. They're not just trying to make these stadiums 81 game venues. They're trying to make it a 365-day type venue or type developments where you have your games. You also have like little shops like off to the side, restaurants, bars, and other forms of entertainment that are liking to the general public. And hopefully that's what the Royals are aiming for. They're not just going to plop a stadium in the middle of Kansas City, Missouri, and just have it there. But I know there's a lot to do around there, especially with the park and light district that Kansas City built, especially when because that was the host site for a lot of the watch parties for when the Royals won the World Series back in 2015, and even for the U.S. national team, like they've hosted watch parties for them. As Kansas City is considered to be Soccer City USA, like with Sporting KC, and even especially with the other sports activities that happened there, especially with the Chiefs when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. And I mean, I feel like if the Royals they want the new stadium, then they'll probably have to jump through less hoops to get it compared to what the A's have had to do. I mean, the A's, I feel like they have to jump through a lot of hoops just to get approval and just to get legislation signed off, because technically this was a project that they were hoping to have done by next year. And when this was first announced back in 2017 that they wanted to build the Howard Terminal ballpark, I mean, it was almost a no-brainer that, okay, like, we like your commitment to the city, but what's in it for us? Like this is like Oakland talking to the A's. So it's like, what's in it for us? Like, where are you going to give back to the community when this ballpark gets off the ground? And that's just normal. I mean, it's normal in a way for a community to question, what benefits they'll receive from a new stadium projects, because if there's not any benefits given back to the community, then people are going to try their best to fight against it. And I can't really say too much or expose too much, especially knowing that I had connections with that. But I will say that the efforts are still being made, and it's just kind of upsetting that it's being delayed for like countless amount of years and like months and years, and there still hasn't been any progress made. And and Rob Manfred, he's getting very impatient with the A's. I mean, as far as trying to get the new stadium that they want, and that's concerning. It's concerning in a lot of ways, but hopefully with the new mayor coming into Oakland, there's more push and more demand for it, and there's a lot more support going forward. I mean, it's just really how the business works. I mean, you look at all like how fast-paced this industry is, and just how many moves are being made in a lot of areas, and you just being a part of this and just witnessing this from afar, and even being a part of it in a certain aspect, it is really enticing and is very rewarding to understand this combination of real estate, marketing, management, communications, and just a general business administration. And this is why I advocate for a lot of people to go study sports management in college, because there's a lot more that you can take from it compared if you just went for like a degree that's very one-dimensional. And I feel like sport management isn't a one-dimensional degree. There's actually a lot of value that I've taken in these past 4 years that I've been in school, and I've learned so much just with what I've been able to learn on the job, also learn in the classroom, and really just also to learn on my own time. I mean, these notes that I take down, I mean, I have to do my homework on it, and that's really all it comes down to, is just doing your homework and understanding the law of the land. But that's really something that you should you're going to be looking forward to learning more about as this podcast continues, and as we continue to grow this brand that I want to pass on to the generation that's coming up, and encourage more people to do it, because there are so many fun aspects. If you're somebody that's in the sports and that loves it and has a passion for it, if you know that you're not going to play the sport at the next level, then it's best to learn the business side of it. mean, I grew up playing baseball thinking, like, oh man, like if I work really hard, I can make it to the major leagues one day. And, after not making the walk-on tryouts for the team here at St. John's, baseball was, not on my mind anymore. I just had to go from having that player mentality over to having the business the business person mentality. And, that's what I've been able to, use to my advantage when it comes to understanding, the business of sports, because I just didn't want to be a player. I also wanted to have an understanding of the business if baseball did work out. But since it didn't, I was able to have that backup plan, able to still carry on with that mentality that I feel like a lot of athletes should have as well. They can't just be one dimensional. They need to understand the business if they still have plans to go into the business. But that's what we're going to plan to do here as this podcast goes on. But yeah, that's really all I have for that. But one thing that I will do when it comes to this podcast and how I will round out every episode is I will name off job listings and sports of the week. So, as far as the listings I've been able to find online, there's an open position for the Oklahoma City Thunder in partnership for partnership sales coordinator that you can find on LinkedIn. There's also a open position for the Houston Texans. They're looking for a director of social media. So if you're somebody that's specialized in social media, you can find that on Teamwork Online. There's also a content producer position for the PGA Tour. So any golf enthusiasts out there, if you're looking to help the PGA Tour with content producing, then you can find that on Teamwork Online. And lastly, as far as job listings and sports of the week, you have the Los Angeles Rams looking for a specialist in club member services. So there you have it. That's going to wrap up the pilot episode of the Off-Field Players podcast. I've been your host, Phillip Hall. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be on the lookout for future episodes. And also, you could not only listen to episodes on Spotify or on places where where podcasts are produced, but you can also find us on YouTube at the Off-Field Players podcast with Phillip Hall. So, just definitely, wish everybody the best of luck. Make sure to support the podcast to keep this thing going. And I will see you on the next one. And always remember to achieve what you believe.